What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Dirt Drop Podcast. I am your host, Chris Napp. Today we're going to be talking to another one of my great friends about all things grassroots drifting and everything about the sport that they can be able to help contribute to grassroots drifting, people looking to learn more about drifting, and how to be able to progress through the sport of drifting in the proper way. First, I want, obviously, shout out to my sponsors. Stage Wheels out of Richmond, Virginia. Talk to Bill about getting hooked up on some fantastic stage wheels. You can find them, Stage Wheels, on Facebook and Instagram, and also www.stagewheelsna.com. Our other sponsor is Zeknova Tires. Zeknova Tires out of Florida. Shout out to Luis Lanz. They're being able to be offered in not just in Florida, out of Chicago, and Toolworks is also a dealer for Zeknova. So if you want to be able to find more information on Zeknova Tires, make sure to check out www.zeknovaus.com. Okay, so my guest today is a stranger to some, but not a lot of people. This guy has been a part of motorsports his entire life because he essentially grew up on a racetrack. He runs the East Coast Drift School out of Englishtown, New Jersey at Englishtown Motorsports Park, or famously known as E-Town with the new Drift Gauntlet. He also pilots a couple of awesome cars. Personally, one of my favorites, Lexus IS300 with a NZ engine in it. Has been able to go to Drift Masters out in Europe. Has been able to host and deal with a lot of the great FD teams here in the U.S. Without further ado, let's give it up for Mr. Chris Napp.
Hi, guys. Sorry I'm a little dark and a floating head.
Thank you so much, dude, for joining us here. I'm really excited to be able to get people to know you more, but also be able to have you explain kind of what you do, your background in drifting, how it is to be able to be part of a racetrack, you know, and all those wonderful things that be able to go with that. But yeah, let's just jump into it. Who is Chris Napp?
Hi, guys. I'm Chris. It's pretty easy to remember my name if you can remember his. Yeah, I grew up in Jersey. My dad worked for Raceway Park his whole life, and now I'm doing the same thing, working for Raceway Park, running the drift school, trying to make events happen here.
Okay, fantastic. So I guess, can you go a little bit more into depth of what E-Town is, Englishtown, for those that maybe haven't seen it or gone there or know about it?
So, Old Bridge Township Raceway Park started in 1965. It was 3 different farms that were all bought together and created a drag strip. The property is expansive. It's 435 acres of mainly parking. And we did drag racing from 1965 until 2017. We have motocross track, which is going from, don't quote me, but 74, I want to say, till still going. Drifting's been happening since 2003. We have an airport. We have a kart track. I don't know when that started, but it was right around the same time as drifting. We've done endurance races for people, like mud runs and stuff. We've done concerts. We've done food truck festivals. We've done everything.
I mean, it's really cool to see how that I guess, expansive portion of, like, you know, all the available surfaces, all the available styles, whether it be motocross or food truck festivals, to be able to have there and still be going so long. I mean, 65 was not just a couple of years ago. And you also, I believe, you have a road course as well that's got multiple different layouts.
Yep, we have 3 different drifting tracks. We have the Formula Drift track, our karting track we do drifting on, and our road course, which we can run 2 layouts simultaneously on.
Yeah, that is awesome. Just to be able to have all that expansiveness, change it up, you know, never run the same layout twice. I know there's a competition layout for like Gambler and stuff like that you guys run. It's the popular layout, especially with like the last bank wall ride before tree turn. Being able to see that's really, really, really awesome. Now, you're obviously a driver too. So can you kind of get into how you started in drifting, when, and kind of the progression of how you became where you're at as a driver?
Yeah, my dad got pressured into driving in like 2011, 2012. And then I followed suit really, really close after. It was the winter of 13 into 14. He surprised me with a car, and it was a blue S13 with a It was a 13 SR. I can't remember if it was a black top or a red top, but
Okay.
I had a 4.6 on fins, and it was perfect third gear, stock handbrake, cut knuckles, nice and easy.
And this was, I guess you said, so 13. So we're talking about, you've been driving for about a decade, plus or minus a year
Yeah,
or two?
this will be 11 years this year.
Okay. And then for those of you that don't know Mike Napp is actually Chris's dad. So he's kind
Yes.
of the guy. And that, I believe, the 1 Series, the Bloodmasters car, is that his car?
That is his car. That is her. Me and him built that car together. We actually bought it from IAA, which is the salvage yard that's in Raceway Park and currently using the light right now up there. We didn't buy it from this yard, but we did get it from this company.
Okay. And now, as far as that Bloodmasters car, I mean, people have seen that all over. It's essentially been the loaner do-it car for whoever wants to come in, whether a driver from overseas or oh man, I need to do a gambler. Mike will just say, hey, here's the keys and finish the comp. Can you kind of go in depth on what's done with that car?
Oh yeah, that car is a 1FJZ with a Future Fab manifold and a G30 660. It dynoed at 510 horsepower and 530 pound-feet of torque. It's got a T56 and a Ford 88. Right now, it's got a 456 rear gear in it, which is pretty money for the stadium and the road course.
That's a third gear, fourth gear screamer with that thing.
Oh yeah, thing is
Oh my
rowdy.
gosh. Now, so for those of you that are not familiar with engine designations, a 1.5 JZ obviously was never made. And correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not a huge JZ kid. It's the head from a JZ, which was a 2.5
Yes.
liter. And then the bottom end block is the JZ iron
Yes.
block. So that could be the turbo or the NA version. That's what the 1.5 is.
This one's a turbo bottom end. Yeah. I actually went to a dealership, a Toyota dealership, and bought one brand new for Christmas 2 years ago.
You can still buy 2J stuff at the dealership, which is...
Yep.
I'm going to say you can't do that for SRs and RBs for Nissans over at the Nissan dealership, but it's really cool. Now, I guess I also want to talk about the drift school. So East Coast Drift School, you run that. Can you break that down since we're kind of mainly focused on grassroots and entry-level drifting?
So, East Coast Drift School is my drift school, obviously, but I differ from a lot of schools because it's not structured. It's very, very individual. Like, if you've gone to a bunch of events and you know what everything does, like you know what the clutch does, you know what the handbrake does, you know what the gas does, you can get the car sideways. I'm not going to make you do donuts for 2 hours, we'll pick up where you left off at your last event.
Oh, okay. So instead of having like a cookie cutter program, it's more tailor-made to the driver.
Exactly. Yeah. Like if you want to come out and you want to get your lead lap down for the gambler, we'll focus on that for 2 hours straight. And it's like, all right, I think I've done enough of that. I want to learn how to do a backy. Okay, let's do that.
All right, now, okay, we're talking about some really, really advanced stuff when we talk about competition, but have you ever had anybody at your drift school who has never drifted a turn in their life?
It's probably a good third of my students have never done anything before. The other thirds are normally people who just want more seat time. They want to get that bump to B group, they want to get the bump to A group, stuff like that.
Okay. Now, so with it being 1 out of 3 of new people, what are some of the things and progressions that you try to look for with those individuals just to try to be able to make them feel comfortable with the car, comfortable with, being in drift? How do you go about that?
So it actually doesn't happen as often anymore. A lot of my students already know how to do donuts around a cone. They've already done that. They've already done figure eights, or they've done something similar and they want to make the jump up, which I'm fine with. It's fine. We could just go to a corner. Usually we'll hop on our kart track, which is actually cut into our parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's cut in, repaved, and painted. So there's a couple corners out there that are really nice. They flow together super, super easy. So I usually have them try those corners first, seeing if we can get a full corner and then a transition. And then the last transition, we usually do the 3 in the back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, usually like if someone's never done anything before, we get to either just getting a figure 8 or a corner and a transition, or yeah, so we just barely, they figure out the figure 8, or They do a corner and transition. That's usually the steps it goes in the first 2 hours. Usually how it
Okay.
goes.
So
It's not
so
how.
two.
Yeah,
It's
that's my. Everyone always asks, "Oh, why can't I do 4? Why can't?" I'm like, we can. You're not gonna want to. 2 hours straight is a lot
yeah. I mean,
because it
you
is. It's
figure
2 hours of track time. It's
yeah.
2 hours of track time. There is no. We do have classroom stuff, but we don't sit down for it, and I don't count the classroom towards the lesson. I just want seat time as the 2 hours.
Well, plus like at like a regular event, you're not waiting on grid. You're not having to worry about. I mean, realistically, letting the car cool down is going to be your biggest
Oh,
hurdle.
100%. Like, during my school days, you have tops 5 other dudes. Tops. So it's 6 people,
No
and
way.
the tracks are big enough where you might be on grid for 30 to 40 seconds waiting. That's it.
And that's, I mean, for those of you that haven't been to a drift event before, there are some of the larger events. I know we talked to Dan about DOD, but there are some events where you're in like a 20 car stack. You'll be in grid for 8 to 10 minutes, maybe even
Yeah,
12 to
in
15.
between runs. Yep.
Yeah. And I mean, the tires get cold and the cars heat up because they're not moving and you're sitting in grid. I mean, that's incredible. Now, as far as obviously things cost money, what kind of pricing are we looking at for 2 hours of track time at the East Coast Drift
It's
School?
$250 for 2 hours.
That's fantastic. Now, do I need my own car? That's a big thing.
Yes, I don't have any school cars. It's your
Okay.
own car only.
Okay. Have you ever had any, I guess, like if say if 2, 3 buddies wanted to use the same car, have you had people share a car at some of the schools?
Oh, yeah, and I only charge by car. I don't charge by driver.
Oh, okay. Well,
So,
that's
yeah.
now. Have you seen success with that? Like as far as like maybe people learning off each other, more learning from you. How do events like that go?
Yes and no. If the car is reliable, it's great. But it's 50-50. When someone's sharing a car with a friend, they go halvesies in it. One person knows more about cars than the other. Usually the person who doesn't know enough about cars is the one that they have it at their house and they're maintaining it, and it's not
Right.
very maintained.
Like like a typical drifter, the night before. Oh, I need to mount tires. Oh, I should probably put my turbo back on. Oh, this.
Oh, my brakes don't work. I need to bleed. Oh.
Um, now, what made you want to start East Coast Drift School? Because I know Reese up in Evergreen has a school. There's a couple other institutions that do it. I know Drift
Yeah.
University, Taylor
Oh,
Hall.
actually, so Reese, anyone who asks for school cars, I send right to Reese, right to Evergreen Drift School.
Does it Reese Marin,
Yeah.
Formula Drift Judge? Yeah.
Yep.
That's a fantastic point. He does have so yeah. So again, what made you want to be able to start this idea?
So my office did, actually. I was teaching out of my own car that blew with all of my friends. And my office was like, why don't you charge them? And I did. I started charging them.
And what year did you start this?
19.
So
In 2019.
6 years. I'd say that's a pretty
It'll be
decent
6
amount
years
of time.
officially in June.
Fantastic. So, I mean, the one thing I'm curious about, did COVID have anything to impact your business? I mean, you're talking about
We
the
were
true
outside.
definition.
It was, honestly, no, it didn't affect it at all.
Yeah. I guess
It didn't affect it one bit.
any uptick with just more people having free time?
Yeah, actually, yeah. We have a huge Brazilian population here, right by the track, and
Oh,
they were all off. And they would come in groups of 4 or 5, at least twice a week. At least.
really?
Yeah.
I mean,
It was pretty awesome.
if there's
It was
nothing else
pretty
going
awesome.
on.
Yeah, and dude, they would barbecue. It was sweet.
All right, now you're talking my language. Now that's
Oh,
my kind
yeah.
of day.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I wish I knew some Portuguese to know what they made. I have no idea what they made.
Well, I mean, not necessarily knowing Portuguese, but you do some traveling for drifting. I know, what was it, last year? You were with Josiah, with Drift Masters?
Yep.
Can you
Yep,
talk a
I
little
did
bit about
3
that?
rounds. Yeah, I got hit up in like October of 22, and he
Okay.
asked me if I was interested, and before he could finish the sentence, I said yes. And it was kind of just I was on the back burner for a while. I never forgot about it. He never forgot about it. And then right around now, last year, it was official that I was going to be his spotter for all 6 rounds, which didn't end up happening because flights became absolutely astronomical all of the sudden. First 3 rounds, it was reasonable to get me from New Jersey to Europe. But in the last 3 rounds, they doubled in price. So I didn't end up going to the last 3 rounds, but it's fine. I'd much rather Josiah be in a better position financially and have someone else do my job than, have him go in a hole for me. I
Right.
don't want that.
Well, that's very
So
selfless.
I did Spain, Ireland, and Finland.
Which one was your favorite?
I have, overall is tough. It's real tough. Overall, I'm going to say Ireland.
Okay.
Because of everyone was just, it was home. It's home for Drift Masters because half their crew is Irish, right? The other half is Polish,
Right.
half's Irish. So it was home. Everybody, it was like, you need a dyno? There's one 10 minutes down the road. You need alignment? No worries. I have scales and lasers and this and that and this and that. No problem. I'll be back in 15 minutes from the track. It felt like here, E-Town, but in Ireland.
Yeah.
It was wild.
Yeah, that's exactly
Spain had the
what
best weather, obviously, and Finland had the coolest track I've ever been to in my life. That track
Really?
is incredible.
Now, okay,
Oh, yeah.
so you talked a lot about the culture and stuff like that. One of the major organizations out of E-Town, Old Bridge Township Park, is Club Loose. How are you associated with Club Loose and their events and everything that kind of circulates what they do?
So, officially, I guess I volunteer. Officially.
Okay. Unofficially?
Unofficially, I mean, I guess unofficially I also volunteer. I don't know. They're kind of like their own thing, and it's their own entity, it's their own company. Club Loose events are not Raceway Park events, but they kind of are, but only because they've been around for so long. But technically, we're totally different companies.
Interesting. I did not know that. I thought there was at least a couple people that kind of worked with and on the other side of that.
I mean, we
Now,
do.
right.
Like, Raceway Park employees help out with Club Loose whenever we can, but
Right.
technically, we're 2 different companies completely.
Now, so that again, the Raceway Park events that are 100% your guys' stuff would be the Gambler,
Yep.
Casino Royale,
Yes.
and then FD, it just essentially rents the track and the property and stuff.
Yeah, it's very similar to Club Loose. And then, it's really just Gambler and Casino. Casino is a split between East Coast Drift School and Raceway, and then the Gambler is just Raceway Park.
Okay, fantastic. Now, with the Gambler series, I would say it's a great grassroots event, although I know in the Unlimited class that it's half FD drivers and clutch kickers and...
Well, since Clutch Kickers is coming back, I nixed the Unlimited class.
Really?
We are just a 35 class now.
Interesting.
Yeah. All the big dogs, they're going to want to be with the bigger payout, which is Clutch Kickers. When Clutch Kickers ceased 2 years ago, I gave the drivers an opportunity to give something to their sponsors because we're a live stream event. Drivers definitely used it, and it's awesome that they did. But most of them were in Florida, so it's like, it doesn't make sense to go back and forth. But now it's in Alabama. It's 10 hours closer for them.
Yeah, I mean, people don't understand when you're talking about where you were going to, when they moved from the kart track to Cletus's, it really shifted this whole dynamic of, okay, now I have to almost plan an extra day on the front and the back of it. It's almost an FD weekend at that point for some of these guys.
I think from Emerald Coast to Cletus was like 7 hours or something. 7 or 8 hours.
Yep.
Whew.
Yeah, and
that's a lot.
Well, because there were a lot of guys that were locals to Emerald Coast, and that's why they loved Clutch Kit. It was just perfect, little kart track, life was good. And now you're adding 16 hours round trip into your travel time. I
wonder how close Mid Pond is to Emerald Coast. I don't know.
I'm gonna on the back end. I'm gonna put a graphic that's gonna tell us exactly how for our viewers when they watch this.
Well, I'm gonna guess 4 hours. I'm guessing 4 hours. We'll see how close I get.
I'll guess 5 just because I haven't been to Mid Pond, and if I'm trying to remember where it is in Alabama, I'm gonna guess 5. So we'll
Have you ever
see.
been
We'll
to
see.
Birmingham?
Yes.
It's 35 minutes south.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, then, yeah. Maybe you may beat me on this one. Which, hats off to you then. Um, but yeah. So I guess the track we're talking about is Mid Pond in Alabama. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful scenery. You literally drift around a pond, which is super cool. Obviously, Mid Pond, but they're clearing some forest. They're doing some
Yes, they
heavy,
are.
heavy.
Yes, they are. I was there in
Um,
November. Yeah, it's pretty rad.
yeah. Well, it's okay.
He's
So
gonna have.
first, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say he's gonna have like multi-level, not like a parking garage, but like it's almost like stadium seating, but for pits looking over the racetrack. It's really cool. Really freaking cool.
That's some Tokyo Drift stuff right there. All right, that's
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's he in the drawings that I've seen, there's 3 levels to the pits, and they all are high enough where you can look over the rigs below you and
that
see
is
the track.
insane. That is
Yeah.
all right. Yeah, I'm definitely excited. I may not take a car down there, but I may just go down just to watch because that sounds like it's gonna be a gnarly season for sure.
Oh yeah.
Um, yeah. All right. Okay. We got a lot of the fun stuff out of the way. I really want to pick your brain more so on the educational side of things of drifting, strictly
Mhm.
because you do have East Coast Drift School and you live out of track at this point. New drifters, what is one modification that they swear they need to be a successful drifter, but is absolutely not needed when you're just starting out?
I bet you can guess, and it starts with a P and ends in an R, and yeah, power. They think they need power. I always get, oh my turbo kit's almost in. I'm like, for what? You have a Z. You don't need that. What are you doing that for? Usually what I do is I send them a video of my fiance drifting her naturally aspirated IS 300 around our kart track, and they go,
Oh, that's right. She does have
"Oh,
one.
yep. Oh yeah.
I mean,
Oh yeah,
that's
that
what, like
car shreds."
210 horsepower maybe on a good day.
When it was new and at the crank.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah.
But okay, but you got a. So I mean, going back to the power though, you have the turbo 800. It's a
I used
NAT
to.
setup.
I used to. I actually lifted the head in that motor. And then I went down the rabbit hole. Oh my, I want to go pro. I gotta do this. I gotta do that. I gotta do this. I gotta do that. And then I went to mid pond, and it just changed everything for me. 700 plus horsepower went right out the window, and I almost immediately bought a UZ. And the UZ is in the car. It's
Ooh.
been running. I took out the wiring harness. I had a couple little issues with the wiring harness. There was a back feeding problem, so it's out getting fixed. And then once I get it back, car's ready.
So are we gonna possibly see like an Eaton M112 on there, or
Um, do you know who
maybe an
Lori
M90?
Heinonen is?
I know the name. I don't know them personally now.
So Lori Heinonen just won Drift Masters, the 2024 season. He has a 180 SX with a Dodge NASCAR motor
Hmm.
with a chassis-mounted Pro Charger.
I don't. I didn't know about the
Now,
chassis mounted Pro Charger, but I remember the NASCAR motor.
yeah,
Those have been making their way through
yeah,
Drift Masters. The TRD
oh
motors, the
yeah,
Dodge Hemis, a
yup,
lot of the we were talking about the Roush Yates motors from Ford,
yup,
RTR specials, um,
yeah, RY.
chassis mounted Pro Charger.
Yup, so he's got a second, it's like, basically he beefed up his OEM, Rad Sport,
Okay.
and, the belt's like 18 inches long with one little tiny, uh, oh god, I'm having a brain fart, tensioner,
Tensioner.
and just pushes straight up. It's 8 rib, makes like 1100 horsepower. Now, am I going to make 1100? No. If I want 450 to 500, that's doable.
Okay. Okay. No,
But they make a Pro Charger mount for the UZ, but it's not thick enough. So there's some flimsiness to it. So I wanted to get away from that. And then I was like, all right, well, my only real option left is a top mounted a supercharger or a turbo. but I don't really like the serviceability of a turbo V8 turbo. And the heat that comes with a root style supercharger is a little bit more than what I'd like to deal with. But the Pro Charger is a nice, happy medium. It's easy to work on, not as much heat generated. So that's why I'm interested in going that way.
Interesting. Yeah, no, that chassis mounted Pro Charger is something I definitely want to look more into. So
Oh, yeah, I'll
obviously,
send you pictures and stuff.
yeah, no, I'd love to be able to put them up on the chat for people to be able to see and everything. So okay,
Oh
so we
yeah,
see
easy.
that power is not needed. What is one modification that you absolutely do suggest should be in the first, let's say, 3 mods that a new drifter does to their car?
A diff, welded diff, or a really, really good LSD.
Okay.
Number
Okay.
one,
So number
hands
one.
down.
Okay. So like even if you're in an NA Miata, just a welded diff would make it that much more fun and actually be able
Oh,
to.
definitely.
Okay.
And if it has an LSD that works, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, because
The biggest thing is that works. Yeah.
So obviously you've got your helicals, you got your VLSDs. I know the Nissans are super popular with those, but even in the Mazda we had well, okay,
VLSD.
so when I was first coming up, the J30 VLSDs going in an S14 were the poor man's, like if I didn't know how to weld, which I didn't, like that was the easy thing to do. But explain to our wonderful viewers why the VLSD can be a downside.
They work until they don't, and then you have an open diff again, right? So a lot of times they work fine in normal driving, but they have 100 and something thousand miles on them, and then now you're beating the piss out of them, and all of their life was spent, 160,000 miles of street driving. You go out to the track, that whole lifespan's gone. It's gone. It's just gone. So you go out on track and now you have an open. Even though 2 days ago you did a burnout and both tires spun. But now you have real forces on it, it doesn't work anymore.
Okay, so diff is definitely the number one. Okay, then I guess since I went down this rabbit hole, what would you say would then numbers 2 and 3 would be as far as top modifications to a new entry level drifter?
Probably a working Oh no, wait, hold on.
Yeah,
this is assuming.
Don't say it. Don't say it.
This is assuming all of your bushings are fine, your water pump doesn't leak, your radiator is fine, you have a good clutch fan or good fans, and okay, so all the OEM stuff is still in working order, right?
Correct.
That's assuming all of that. A working handbrake, coilovers, and some rear arms so you don't wear just the inside corner.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Do you really feel? I would disagree on the handbrake.
I just want it to work. You don't have to use it. I just want it to work.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's the
if
one
you
thing.
want a cable handbrake, and as long as it locks up the rears, that's fine.
Yeah. Well, so that's another thing I have been seeing is a lot of people like, oh well, I got to get a hydro in my car so I can drift. I gotta get a nice big handbrake, and I think that makes you, it puts you in a different echelon. It makes you learn the wrong way. You don't understand power, weight transition. Like it's just, I don't know. I don't think it's the easiest way to do things. But so I guess with that going on, go ahead. No, please.
I think the hydro argument is, I don't really think it affects like learning too much as long as you stay on top of it, as long as you think about it just the littlest bit. I think the biggest problem with needing a hydro is the cost. It's expensive. It's much cheaper to replace some cables on your handbrake and some pads, right? Like if you're in a 240, get some fresh cables, project new pads. There you go. They work again.
Done.
That's way cheaper than doing a dual caliper. You'll be $1,000 into a dual caliper setup all said and done.
Yeah. Well, even an inline setup isn't exactly great because you still have to make the lines. You still have to be able to have that. Plus, if you're not careful and you go to
you'll lose your brake pedal,
and then you have no brakes, and yeah.
And then you fix that. Oh, I need a brake bias thing, and then who's going to teach you how to use a brake bias controller?
That's when you got to go to that buddy that has the car at his house, so it's been sitting. So it's like, hey, can you teach me how to fix my car?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so going along those lines, what's one thing right now? You work, obviously you said you volunteer with Club Loose, and you run the drift school, but what's one thing you see that new drivers as like a faux pas, like something that they just need to stop doing immediately, that you think is just like a terrible, terrible thing that could be holding them back from being better at drifting?
Manging the straights. There's a couple
Thank you,
sections.
thank
There's a
you.
couple sections at E-Town where you don't need to manji at all, and they do it
No,
anyway. And I have to sit
no.
down and I'll be like, all right, what's happening when you do that and you have 10 people behind you? You're screwing all of them up. All of them. And then I
All right,
like
okay.
get a map out and I show them the right line through the map that I've drawn, and then they go, duh, I can fit all my friends behind me if I just drive this way instead of that way.
The man line, as sometimes it's called. It's just drive the man
Yeah,
line,
exactly.
and then you're good. Okay, so
Yep.
obviously some of the terms we've been using we're super familiar with. Can you explain the term manji the straight? Because I 100% agree with you, but I just don't want some people to get confused, and I think you'd be best to
Yeah.
kind of explain that one.
So manjing would be going down a straight road and just drifting side to side, transitioning side, transition side, side, left, right, left, right. That would be manjing, right? If you're familiar with some of the Saudi videos of those Camrys down the highways, that's manjing. Oh yeah,
All right, now,
those dudes
okay,
are
so
wild.
I've never seen a Camry just look so cool in its entire life. Like it's just
Yeah,
chef's kiss. Okay, now
yeah.
obviously now talking about what manjing is, why would that be seen as a negative? Like don't you want to get the car in drift at a certain point? Why would manjing the straight be seen as the negative?
So most of the time the track is run differently. Like, of course, there's sections where the track has to be run that way. That's fine. All the drivers behind you eventually, when you're tandeming, know that. But if it's a straightaway that everyone just goes straight to then do a real big entry on, you're holding them up behind you. It's like, okay, why are you going so slow? Because it is slower. It's way
Mm-hmm.
slower. Or they won't be ready for it, and all of a sudden you just switch back. And they thought you were still drifting in the same direction. You're going to get hit. Yeah, exactly.
That makes more sense. That makes more sense. Now, I mean, obviously, some people who are used to tandeming with each other, they'll communicate, hey, because I know when I'm in grid and I'm like, buddies, hey, I'm gonna manji this section. I'm not gonna lift here. Like, especially if you want to get like proximity and maybe you do
Yeah,
want to
that
just look cooler.
and that's okay. And that's
Yeah.
okay. As long as it's understood before the lap starts, it's fine.
So okay, so I mean, seeing that communication's obviously a big thing going along with that. Now, what's one thing that you wish drivers would do more of in the beginning to get better at drifting? We went on the bad side. Let's go on the good side.
I bet you can guess. Starts with an S, ends in an M. There's an I in the middle. Sim. Sim, 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 sim. Sim.
Do you have a sim? Do you have a sim?
I actually just gifted my sim to Brian Hopp so he could get better practice for ProSpec.
Brian Hopsum. I butcher his name. I
Hoplamazian.
It took me
Mr.
literally
Mulch
4
Mittens
years to learn
himself.
your name, and now I'm on Brian Hop. So at least I got another half decade
Yeah.
to learn his name. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, the
So okay,
long Italian names and long Armenian names, you know?
I'm trying, man. I'm giving it the old college try. What? Okay,
Oh,
so
yeah.
Dan was huge on the sim too. What's your biggest reason of why you like the sim? I mean, I've got my reason why I like mine. What's your reason?
I like the reset button a lot. No, but honestly, kids and adults, but people who start on the sim pick up real life drifting 15, 20 times faster than people who don't. That's just it. You just pick it up so much faster. The learning curve is steep as it is. It is so steep, the learning curve for drifting. It does plateau, and once you plateau, you're like, damn, I'm getting it now. But it'll smooth that hill out so much.
So do you think now, I mean, we were talking about last time, with Sims becoming a little bit more affordable, I mean, Dan was 100% on board with saying, hey, forget trying to buy a car if you want to start getting into drifting. Just buy a sim, get really good at sim driving, and then jump
And then
into a
make the
car.
switch. Oh,
What's your thoughts on that?
100%. I love
Really?
that. That's awesome. Oh, yeah.
I mean,
I love
because
that.
then you even
That's
got that,
awesome.
like, Yeah, it's on the backside of it. If you don't have an event that weekend, or it's wonderful January in the Mid Atlantic, to where you'd rather not be
Yeah,
drifting, and
it is.
snow and
Actually,
all
it's
that
not
kind of.
that bad. It's 37 right now here.
The Florida drifters are going to hear that, and they're just going to bundle up in their muff. Oh my goodness! So
They don't even
okay,
want to know how many layers I have on right now.
more than we'd like to admit, but yeah, that's all that matters on. But okay, so we talked a little bit about Formula Drift and E-Town. So the drag strip was operational, I believe you said, till 2017.
17 was our last year, yeah.
Okay, and it was an NHRA track. I mean, it was
Mhm.
popping decade after decade. What was the big shift to now turn it into the East Coast Drift Stadium that is E-Town?
Well, we weren't using it anymore. And what else?
Right.
What else were we gonna do? We got to use it for something. But really, the biggest switch was I went to Wall Stadium, and Formula Drift outgrew it. They outgrew it. There was only X amount of people that they could fit, and it was one of their smallest rounds just because of that. And I saw an opportunity to put it. I'm currently, it's behind me right now, but right there.
Yeah, we'll put up a
So
graphic.
yeah, so I went to my dad and I was like, Dad, I'm looking at the stands. There isn't half a person you could fit in this place. They need to move to their spot. Jim Lau was still the CEO at the time, so
Hmm.
we called him up. My dad knew him from Wall Stadium. Couldn't have their event in '08, so we actually hosted a Formula Drift on our road course in '08 or '09, or can't remember.
I knew it was pre 2010. It
Yeah,
was early. Yeah, yeah.
yep. So we knew them from then, and they are just the best people ever. They're so awesome to work with. They're just the best. They really, really are.
So I mean, it is really cool to see a drag strip being repurposed into now that's this awesome. You know, People say, "Oh, well, it's just a figure eight." I'm like, I'm going to tell you right now, it is not just a figure eight. If you've driven it, I mean, there are people that are getting down. I mean, you watch on the event LZ1. I mean, he came in there with some goose
Oh
amount of
my,
angle and just
that
hung it
was
out, and
so wild.
then it was just so. I think that the track is underrated for people that haven't been to E Town, but like you said, the facility it makes an event. I went to my early East Coast. I went to two wall events when I was first starting, '07 and
Mhm.
I think like 11 or something like that. And yeah, I mean, we were just at Wall a couple of months ago. I mean, it's tiny.
It's
And
small.
you don't.
It's not saying that's a bad thing though.
No,
It is
it's just a
small, but
fact of the
that's not a
matter.
bad thing.
Yeah,
Yeah. You only
but
have the space you're given.
I will say this too, on the other side of things, when you look at the facilities, the amenities, a lot of the available stuff to teams that obviously used to be an NHRA caliber, now available to Formula Drift. A lot of the stuff that E Town offers is up to par with what they're looking at. So, can you? I mean, I've always been curious because I know how much it takes to put on an event. Can you kind of walk me through the FD weekend when it comes to FD E Town or FD New Jersey?
So my FD weekend starts right after, God, what's 3? Is Orlando 3 or is Road Atlanta 3?
No, usually Road Atlanta is 2 because that's when the
Okay,
first
so
kind
it's
of pro spec.
Orlando.
Yeah,
Oh, wait, no, then it does start after Atlanta because we offer storage for all the drivers and we
that's
offer
right. So they
testing
don't have
for
to
all the
go.
drivers.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, so you have a guy like Adam Kanapic from SoCal. Why would he go from Atlanta to SoCal to Jersey when we have the space just to put him here straight away? And he could
right.
just get a flight 40 minutes north of here in Newark Airport and go right home.
Wow.
You
Yeah,
know?
forgot that is that close, and that's an international airport
Yep.
too. So if your overseas guys had to go back home, they could still be able to utilize. Wow, that's amazing. So all right,
Oh
so
yeah.
it starts after round two, and
Yep.
just for the
And
storage.
I'll bring it. So some storage, some testing. Offer my shop up if they need to fix anything real fast. We have dynos nearby. We have alignment racks nearby. So we have welders at the shop here. So if any of those drivers need anything, we have it here. They don't have to really leave and go hours and hours and hours to go find something that they need. It's all here. within an hour of E-Town.
That's impressive. I remember like when Odie blew his motor at Atlanta, so something similar like that. If he didn't need to go to LZ's shop and they had to go up back to, get ready for E-Town, boom, the facilities are right there. I know
Yep.
I follow
Lifts
you on
open,
social media.
Odie, go take it. Yep.
I follow you on social media pretty consistently just because, I like the stuff you're doing. There was some stuff going on 2 weekends ago up at E-Town. There was some things and some stuff.
Are you talking about our new airline, XJ Airlines?
I was curious what that was all about.
So, beaters have always been a soft spot of me and all of my friends. I came in late to all the beatering, but like my best man at my wedding has always had Jeeps, always.
Nice.
And I actually, for my bachelor party, we're doing a cheap car challenge, and I got myself a Trailblazer. He's got an XJ. Another one of my groomsmen's got an XJ. Brian Hopp just got an XJ. But yeah, that video was Henrik Meyer absolutely setting himself into orbit. Wild.
If you guys are not familiar with what we're talking about, definitely go check out Chris's Instagram. Was at Chris Napp, I believe.
Yeah, Chris_NAPP, but that video is on Ricky Hoffman's page.
Oh, that's right. That's where I saw it. I guess you must have reposted it. Or it was in your story or something.
Yeah, I put it on my story and stuff. Yep.
Oh my god. Okay.
Yeah. Insane. I couldn't believe it. It was our Friendsgiving. We had the faction crew down, and they've never really gone wheeling before. So we brought them out in the woods by the track, and Kenrick was feeling himself. He was pretty stoked. So he was doing little jumps. Oh, yeah. He was doing little jumps, and the faction guys were getting in and doing little jumps. They've never jumped a vehicle before. And then we're all high-fiving, this and that, and then all of a sudden, Kenrick goes back down the jump. And we're like, what you doing, bud? And he sends it once on the same jump, gets a lot of air. And then a guy named Frankie Beans goes, hey, Ken, you should jump it here. And then has his cell phone light up and in front of the jump. And he goes, you got to jump to the right of this flashlight. And then that's where the video came from.
Yeah, he did. Oh, God. Oh, my 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 God.
Goodness
oh, my
gracious.
God. So that night, I laughed so hard, the muscles on top of my scalp cramped up. I've never had that happen before in my life.
So beatering is definitely something we'll add to the Webster's dictionary after this, but when it comes to other forms of motorsports, obviously you're a drifter, but when it comes to other forms of motorsports, whether it be road racing, karting, beatering, do you think there are some things that you take away from all that kind of stuff that would help make you a better drifter, or vice versa, because you're good at drifting, you could be better at other disciplines?
I don't really have a whole lot of grip racing under my belt in cars. Karting, a good bit of karting. I've had a lot of track time with stuff called cross karts and karting and cross kart. So a cross kart is actually, you know what a Sierra kart is?
Mm-hmm.
Rob Parsons built them. So it's that, but a little bit smaller. Rob Parsons he built some crazy stuff. Well, I've never driven one of those before, but they're Gixxer 750s.
Mm-hmm.
So my biggest takeaway with driving something like that, karting, one of those, even wheeling. When you're flying down a trail, it's all reaction time. And if you don't have a good reaction time, you're going to crash. There's just no if, ands, or buts, right? And in drifting, sometimes your reaction times can kind of get a little laxed because everything, depends how you set your car up. But your car can be pretty relaxing to drive, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just super flowy, nice and easy, this and that. And some of those reaction abilities can be put on the back burner a little bit. But some of those other things, moto would be huge. Now, I'm not super into moto, but
Motocross,
guys who do... Yeah, motocross. Okay. Stuff like that, or mountain biking, especially downhill stuff. Your reaction time needs to be on it, right? And that directly translates to drifting. Directly.
Yeah. I didn't even think about the motocross stuff. You're
Oh
on
yeah.
track with 30 other dudes, no doors, no nothing, and your appendages are out, and you're in a whole different. Wow, yeah, okay,
And they're trying to kill you
yeah, exactly, yeah.
the whole time.
Everyone's trying to get first place and or kill each other. That's that. Welcome to
Exactly.
motocross.
Yeah.
So I glazed over this one first, this question, because I wanted to talk about that. But speaking of seeing that video on social media, what are some of the things that social media or the internet, like, how do you think that plays a part in grassroots drifting versus like an older guy like me? Like we talked about the forums and like, going from message boards and stuff to now Facebook is a big thing. What's one
Mhm.
thing that, like, I guess social media or your opinion that social media and the internet has for grassroots drifting right
I love it. I love it. The forum days were great. It created heroes, which is awesome. Social media does too, which is great. Now, social media is now taking those heroes, right, and all of the information from the forums, and it's making it more accessible for anyone, absolutely anyone. Now, of course, anyone could go into those forums, but honestly, they're kind of harder to find than Facebook. You know, Facebook's an app on your phone, but when you wanted to go, you would have to know what Zilvia is back in the day. You know.
now? My heart. My heart. I need to take my Centrum Silver and some back pain medicine after hearing that. Yeah.
Yeah.
God,
Yeah.
well, I would agree 110%. I think the culture has just shifted. It hasn't gotten worse or better, and just it adopting. Plus, I mean, being that now that we have cell phones, mini computers that can shoot, edit, and post content all on the same device immediately, instead of going home, taking your digital camera home, taking the SD card out, putting the computer, opening your editor. Like, it would take like 3 or 4 days just for you to put out pictures from the actual event, which is
Yeah.
yeah, no, I agree 100%. All right, the other thing, talking about social media, do you think there's anything negative that social media is doing to drifting? That
Oh, totally, totally.
what's one of
Those
the things maybe you
the
could talk about?
heroes that I was talking about, right? Where did they come from? Did they come from the track? Did they not? Like they
Give
the
me an
people
example, 'cause
out
I'm
there.
I'm curious who you're talking about. Give me an example.
So, I mean, I don't really want to name any names because
Okay.
I truly believe that when people give it a try, they're gonna stick to the track. But like takeovers, right? It's huge. It's huge. Takeovers are huge, and there is a crowd, which is horrible, but there is, right? So that part of it, you're able to spread anything. And that's the beauty and the curse of social media.
Yeah. One of the big things I've noticed, I guess my feed or Facebook is just listening to me talk. I've been seeing a lot more of these toge videos, and I say toge in the sense of people just driving around in American mountain roads like complete asshats. Um,
Yeah.
I know that Drift
Yeah.
Appalachia is doing it right. I know that I don't know the organization over on the East Coast in Utah, like Rome Charpentier and Rudy
Yeah,
Hansen.
that looks wild and super fun, but I can't
Yeah.
remember their name. And there was an Arkansas one too, I think, too, right?
Yes, no, yeah, there it was a little bit newer. I don't think they had that many. I mean, one or two events, but I think people are trying to replicate that with 0% skill. And I mean, you don't go out there in an Integra. You don't go out there and try to do drifting in a car that's not meant to drift. And if you don't know how to
Mhm.
drift, why are you going to put yourself in that situation, endangering not just yourself but others?
Yeah, when I
Um,
have a parking lot right there with a track built in it, but you can't hit anything on.
you
Right there.
brought up, yeah.
It's right there. It's right there.
You did bring up my favorite word to talk about because it's so terrible, takeovers. You're, what, about like an hour maybe from New York City?
Yeah, we're like 45 from Manhattan, just getting
Okay.
right into Manhattan, and then we're probably an hour and 15 from Philly.
Okay, so as far as the takeover scene in your area and surrounding, is it pretty dominant? Do you have a lot of that kind of stuff you have to deal with?
New York City doesn't have much, really. It's Philly.
Interesting.
Philly has a lot. A ton. A ton
Well,
of
you're what, an
takeover.
hour and a half from Philly, give or take?
Yeah, hour and a half, hour 20, something like that.
Okay. And now, have you ever been to a takeover meet?
No, but I have been interviewed by a Philadelphia news channel about it once.
Oh my goodness, it's almost like that was our next segue. Can you talk to us
Wait,
about
really?
It's almost like I know what I'm doing. I am trying so hard to piece this Titanic ship of a interview together, but yeah, no. So I did stumble across your interview. I don't remember the TV station, but how did that come about? Because that piece was super against takeovers.
He DM'd me on Instagram. He just DM'd me on Instagram. Hey, do you want to do a piece for NBC Philly? I don't remember if it was NBC or not. I'm like, yeah, sure.
Obviously, it was very positive. You were talking about how it doesn't represent the real sport. These are not real drivers, and essentially keep it off the streets was what I got from your interview. I didn't look any more past that. Was there an op-ed? Did they interview like a slider? And I mean, I'm really curious.
Maybe I never saw it, but I'm not. I mean, I don't get Philly channels where I'm from, so I don't know.
Random Philly newscaster DMs racetrack worker to be able to talk about the sliding epidemic in downtown Philly.
Yep, that's exactly what happened.
Well, thanks for being one of the good guys and talking negatively about that. Have you had? Yeah, this is. Have you had anyone who has been like a takeover driver take the East Coast Drift School?
Tons.
Really?
Tons. I welcome them with open arms because once they get out here, they don't leave. They don't leave.
Really?
They're like, oh my God, this is so much better than everything that I've ever done. And now they stay here instead. They go to Evergreen. They go here. They go to Pocono. They go to Thompson now, instead of an intersection.
That isn't how many takeover kids do you think you've transitioned? Well, no, it's funny. We can't use that word.
Oh, you son of a bitch! I'm gonna tell your mama on you.
How many takeover kids do you think you have welcomed to the sport of drifting?
I like that better. Welcomed. That's a very hard number to come up with.
More than 10?
35? No, way more. 35, 40 maybe?
My heart. It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful. I can only
I'd say
imagine
35 to 40.
Like, are they cocky when they come in? Do they think or are they just truly trying to learn and progress? I'm really curious how that interaction goes.
Most of them are there to learn, and then they realize how much fun it is over there. So there's always a graph, right? When you first get into something, you start at the bottom, you're at the bottom, and then all of a sudden you're like, wow, I know a lot. And then you realize you don't know anything, and then it slowly comes back up. That holds pretty true, right? If someone's cocky in the first 5 minutes of a lesson, I do not hold it against them at all. Because, hey, if you have the chops, screw it. That's great. And if you don't, you're right back at square zero. And 99 out of 100 times when they come in cocky and they don't excel, they completely come back down to square one, and they are completely, I don't want to say humbled, but they are humbled but happy. They're still happy.
Interesting. So I guess going on the other side of this, we talked about a little bit of the takeover kids, professional drifting. How do you think professional drifting has been affecting the newcomers to the sport and just bringing awareness to the drifting community as a whole?
I think it's fantastic for awareness. It's amazing. Like I said before, heroes. Every sport needs heroes, and they are them. Those are the heroes. There's a couple local heroes here and there, right? There should be more. But none of them are very good at social media, including myself. I suck at it. But pro drivers are the heroes of the sport, so I give them so much credit to for what drifting is and what it has become and where it started. And like Forsberg, Turk, Vaughn, right?
Oh God,
E-Town starters,
Drift
right?
Alliance boys.
Exactly. They were and are my heroes. They're my heroes. From when I was 13 years old, 12 years old, when I first figured out what drifting was, maybe even younger. I was probably even younger than that. I knew they were the first names I learned, right?
Well, can't forget
Forsberg was
about Tony
probably the
Angelo.
first name.
Tony Angelo was in there.
Tony! I'm seeing Tony on Wednesday, actually. He's coming
No
out to film a video
way!
for his channel, yeah.
Oh my goodness, God! So yeah, I mean,
Yep.
so for those
Tony
of you that aren't
comes out.
familiar, no, go ahead. Go ahead. I'll
Yeah,
set
Tony
back
comes
up.
out maybe once to twice a month to showcase a new build that they have to post on their channel.
Right.
Stay tuned.
How far is he from I guess your track?
Hour and a half, maybe? Hour 45?
Philly area.
Yeah, it's yeah. Well, he is
at
in
his
Philly. I
house.
just don't know where in Philly.
Yeah.
Philly's giant. And people say they're Philly, but technically they're a suburb of Philly, and I don't know that stuff.
Or they're Cherry Hill or something like that, and it's just this.
Yeah,
this
right over the
massive
border in
bubble.
Jersey.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's like I tell people I was from DC because they don't know where Rockville, Maryland is, and it's just that big bubble of the DC area. But yeah, so Drift Alliance, we didn't talk about this earlier because I wanted to bring this up. Drift Alliance was back when we had like DVDs. Like there were skate DVDs and there was BMX, and then we had drifting DVDs. And Drift Alliance actually had a couple of different ones come out. But I think, so personally, I feel that's when Mid-Atlantic drifting really got its proper nod. Because drifting in SoCal and the West Coast was, I mean, it's right closer to Japan than we are. I don't think before the Drift Alliance stuff, we really kind of got any true media. It's what, 06, 05, something like that. So as far as the transition now, we're going from the DVD stuff to like reels and podcasts and stuff like that. What do you think is the best way for a driver to get someone's attention using the internet?
Reels.
Reels.
Okay. Yeah. Right now, they just all the whatever algorithm really means, all the algorithms point towards reels. You got to get their attention, and the real way to do it is by good sound and something super like some catchy snippet that just hooked, and then a good sound, and then you have them for the video.
Or jumping on like the social media trend or something like that, and then being able to somehow input your car doing something to that noise or whatever it is.
Yeah. Like a lot of times I see drivers, they post their video and their video's sick, but the first 8 seconds of the video is not really much going on.
Right.
Now, no one has an attention span. No one does. So you just got to be able to hook them the first 2 to 3 seconds, and then do your really cool thing.
Yeah, I mean, you could keep people for 30 seconds to almost a full minute if you've got a nasty hook in the first 4 or 5 seconds, like just boom.
Exactly.
Oh, I want to watch this now.
Yeah, like last year we had some good snow coverage. So from before, my best man, his name's Bobby. Bobby had a Crown Vic. My buddy Jake had a piece of shit Tahoe, and I was in my truck, but I was filming, so I didn't. My truck wasn't in it, but I made a video of all of us playing around in the snow, and the opening scene was a donut to close the door of the Tahoe. Boom, hooked. Rest of the video. The video is 50 seconds. I think it was my most engaged video of the entire year.
Really?
Just because he did a donut and the back of the Crown Vic hit the door of the Tahoe and closed it. That was it.
That is insane. But I guess you can't lie with results if that's what it went through. So one other thing, we got talking about heroes and we give sidetracked because we both share wonderful amounts of ADHD. Heroes. So I am curious, who is your favorite? I'll give you 2 answers. Favorite Formula Drift driver, past or present, and your favorite D1 driver, D1 GP.
Ooh.
Yeah. I want to hear both sides of this.
All right, so D1's very, very easy for me because I don't know any of them personally.
Okay.
Kawabata. 100%.
Masala Cal-
My God, all of his cars are so perfect. The blue is the best blue on planet Earth, and Toyo tires. Oh my God, I love it. Anyways, Formula Drift. I know too many. All right. So, honestly, Taguchi.
Taguchi.
I don't know him,
D1GP
so
gets
he's
it
my
again, but
favorite.
in America.
Yeah.
Well, then, so I guess were you bummed to see, he's not doing 2025?
Yeah, I am, but I do follow him on social media and stuff, and honestly, the biggest reason why I like him so much is the fabrication work he does on the side. The fabrication work that man does is absolutely gorgeous. Gorgeous.
Yeah. I think some people, they're not if they're not familiar with drifting in general, when they hear Formula Drift Pro driver, they sometimes associate it like you would like a NASCAR driver or an NHRA
Yeah, like
driver.
an arrive and drive. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
Carrying the race suit from the airport, and jump in the car and go. But I mean, almost every single driver has I only know of one driver who actually owns the company, who's a full-time paid driver, JR, but everyone else has a shop or a business or goes to school. Like, I mean, they have a full-time thing just to be able to afford this. Now, we talked a little bit last time with Dan about how expensive it is to be able to get into drifting on the pro side.
Mm-hmm.
But some of the modifications you mentioned earlier are really, I guess, inexpensive when it comes to pricing for just any kind of modification. So I gave Dan a $5,000 budget, and I'm curious to hear what your answers are going to be. So you've got $5,000. You've already been sim driving, and you've already gotten some lay down. We're ready to buy our first drift car. Okay. $5,000 in the bank. This isn't including modifications. $5,000 to buy a car on Marketplace. You get 3 choices. What are your, not in any order, I want to hear 3 cars that you would say, all right, let's go drifting. What should I buy?
$5,000. Now, my list is how patient do you want to be? Because at the top, and this is the top, this is my number 1, and I bet you can guess what my number 1 is. But you gotta be patient, because I bought both of mine for under 5. My ISs. Both of them.
Yeah.
You gotta be patient, though. It took a very long time for me to find both those cars at that price point. ZG, right? Gotta throw those out there. They are undeniably some of the best seat time cars on planet Earth. And then 3646.
E3646.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The IS I'm not surprised about. I will say, with it being a 4-door only, like with the Zs and the Gs, you can get them in coupes. Same thing with 36s and 46s. Do you think the wheelbase plays anything into you enjoying that chassis and what it can do?
You want to hear something funny?
Of course, because we're on a
1 inch shorter than a 36.
coupe or sedan.
Oh, they have the same wheelbase. Coupe, sedan, same. 1 inch shorter.
I'm throwing away my whole. So the reason why I say this is I've got 2 MX-83s, or I guess they'd be MX-93s, Cressidas.
83s. So the Cressidas would be an 83. Yeah.
Yeah. Both are 1990s.
Perfect. Yeah, 83s.
And I have 2 because one needs a motor and one has the motor for it, and it's a 2J. I'm not doing 7M. So with that wheelbase, though, I'm trying to figure out where I was going with this, because I got sidetracked when I was thinking about IS300. But is that essentially an older IS300? Have you drifted a Cressida before?
Yeah, I have. Faction built one, and I was able to do a couple corners in it. It's awesome. But so you mentioned wheelbase, right? You have a couple ends of the spectrum. We'll call 550s. They're up at the top. They're long, real
Mustangs.
Long. They're up there with
not familiar. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the newer Mustangs. They're up there with like some of the new 3 Series. They're right around that 112, maybe. The Genesis Coupes are up there too. That would kind of be my top end. I wouldn't really go much longer than a 112-inch wheelbase, 113, something like that. Your other end is a Miata, which is like 90.
Yeah.
And then you have a lot in the middle, like 240s, 99, 98, somewhere's right in there. 350Zs, 103, if my memory serves me correctly. ISs, BMWs, like E36, E46, they're right around 105, 107, somewhere's right in there. FRSs, 101. The new Supra, not that that's grassroots, but that's also like 99.
Yeah.
Yeah, quotes. The new
Very.
Z4, I mean.
Yeah.
But
Well,
yeah,
the Mark
anywhere
III,
in there is fine.
the
Anywhere
Mark
in there is fine.
the Mark III Supra. I know it was super neglected when it came to drifting. Turkey's one in I guess the TRD one. Do you remember the white one with the red, yellow, and orange? There
I
was
mean,
a
I know that, but I never
yeah.
seen him in one. I'd love to see that. I'd
I'd
love to
have to
see that.
pull that picture because I remember it's like ingrained in my brain. It's white. It looks like an these supercar, but or I guess challenge car, but it was like a 700 horsepower 2J. Like it was,
Love that.
yeah, it was gnarly.
Every time you open up your mouth, you give away your ignorance.
But that's the
There's
other thing
parts
too.
out there for him. There's
Yeah.
good parts out there for him too.
So okay, like maybe I will say S300 is fine. I had a Soarer, which in America was the SC300 or the SC400. Is that something that you'd be looking into as well if you can't find an IS?
Oh, definitely. Now for SCs, right? Manuals are very hard to come by. Same with ISs too.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's even harder to find one in an SC. And the other thing is their weight. For a coupe, they are heavy.
Yes.
Heavy.
Okay, so the SC300 you're saying is heavy as a coupe, but I mean,
It's not,
as far
but
as
that's not the end of
yeah.
the world, though. You know,
Okay.
it's just not something that I would be looking for because I'm what's called a weight weenie, and I just like cutting shit out of my car. I
I'm
tell
gonna
all
put
of
some
my
pictures
students,
of
the
the
weight weenie
IS
comes
up
from the
here, yeah.
BMX days. Yeah.
It doesn't
Oh
doesn't
my God,
matter.
my
I'll put some
IS
pictures
has.
of the IS. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all cut out. I have fiberglass doors now. I bought a crashed shell that still has a good roof on it. I'm cutting the roof off of that one to then send to a buddy that's gonna make me. I don't know what it's gonna be yet. It's gonna be one of the three: fiberglass, carbon fiber, or carbon Kevlar. We don't know just yet. It's whatever he wants to work with first. I don't care. Take some more weight out of that thing. See if I can't get it
Okay.
down. Now, I bring that up because there is a triangle with tire wear. And tire wear is your biggest expense, right? In grassroots, tires, always. You have power at one part, you have wheel speed at another, and you have weight at the third part. And if any of those things get bigger, your tire consumption goes up. If anything of those things get smaller, your tire consumption goes down. It's pretty linear with it too.
No, that's a fantastic way to think about it. I mean, I think I at one point understood that it was, but to think of it as a triangle, as it moves, if it goes more towards one thing.
One point of the triangle gets bigger, you're going to go through more tire. If it gets smaller, you go through less.
Yeah. No, that is a good thing. Interesting. No, you're giving me something to think about on my own because when you're talking about learning, going back to the fundamentals and really trying to re-understand things like, we talked about wheelbase last time too, but just understand how to be able to control a longer car versus a narrower wheelbase car. And again, not needing all of that power that you were talking about. And
oh yeah,
if your weight's low, your tire size, you don't need a 265 on a Miata. Like it's just
Yep. I actually had 4 Miatas out yesterday on the kart track, and they were shredding.
I'm sure it was beautiful. I'm sure I love watching a Miata go around. I got there's a friend of mine. I see him now and again. We don't catch up as much. He's Dalton Bailey. Are you familiar with him?
I think I've seen the Instagram or the definitely the Facebook. Definitely the Facebook.
Yeah, he's got a blue B Miata hardtop, but it's got a 2J.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say he's like a rear rad. Like I want to say it's like 600 wheel, something like that. I mean, he's out there on full 225, 45 15 full ways,
Hell
no
yeah.
weights, and jacked up to 50 psi and just billowing smoke out the back of this car.
Wow.
And it's
That's
beautiful.
wild.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
So okay, go ahead. Oh, yeah.
Well, I was just going to say another Miata. That's all. Yesterday, one of my buddies came out. His Instagram is Fudge Man. He found what's the factory turbo he's called? Mazda Speed.
Yeah,
Yep. So he found one in a house fire. And he left it as it was in the house fire. But everything worked. Everything worked. I think he replaced like a bulb in the headlight. And then did all of his drifting mods around it. But it's got the headlight lenses are still melted. The core, like all of the paint is all gone because of the fire and stuff. It is so cool. The story behind it is just so incredible.
That reminds me of, oh my god, I know he's Mid-Atlantic. I know he's like Northeast, actually. He had that Fox body Mustang that was...
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I'm going to put a picture
Skid Lab.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
Justin Putz-Cole was part of that group with his convertible
I love
E36. He's good people, man. I think that car still doesn't get enough credit. And then you got what? Rusty Friend. Yeah, the truck.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Adam Daniels, Rusty Friend.
Yes. Adam.
Oh yeah.
It's the tip of my tongue. Oh my goodness. He can wheel. He can wheel.
Adam
that
Daniels
car.
is a freaking wheel man.
Yeah, no, I'm seeing some of his footage going up against some gambler cars and that, and just giving.
You want to hear something funny? So
let's rock and roll.
I was at one of the gamblers, actually the gambler that Chelsea Denofa was at. He was on his bike watching the competition, and I rolled up beside him, and he leaned over and he goes, "Who do I have to worry about?" And it was like, well, you have to worry about the Meyer brothers. And he goes, okay, I know about them. That's cool. And he goes, oh, but did you take any notes on the vert? He goes, no. And I go, okay, you probably should take some notes on that vert. And it was Adam.
Beautiful, beautiful car. I'll definitely throw him a shout out and throw his luck up here, because and seeing that car progress in like the last 4 or 5 years to just being
going from the teal to the red. Oh, so good.
Yeah. No, beautiful, beautiful monster. So we were talking about drifters having the Formula Drift drivers having to have professional, something going on in their life to be able to fund the drifting hobby. We were just talking about the $5,000 cars. Is there anything that you have as far as tips when it comes to people purchasing parts, or maybe, going in brands versus this versus that? Things to be able to look out for when they're looking at purchasing parts to be able to modify their drift car? Any kind of advice?
A lot of great stuff out there. There's a lot of junk out there. With a budget in mind, you really have to be careful. And anybody can always text me, and I can always help with this. You really got to know what you can skimp out on and what you can't, right? So maybe a rear tow arm can be something off of eBay or Amazon. Mm-hmm. But maybe you don't want the eBay or Amazon angle kit, right? Maybe you want something that has a name brand on it. Yeah, exactly. Right?
Yeah.
So, and that stuff comes with time, so you ask people who've put in the time. They know. They all know. They've all been through it. And every one of them wants you to save money. Every single one of them.
Absolutely.
And they will tell you where you can skimp out and where you really should spend the money.
Well, and then I do want to add to that. Marketplace has been a great place to be able to find great finds and everything on a deal or something like that. But some people, if you're new to modifying cars or just anything in general, just because it's a name brand part and it's used doesn't mean it didn't experience the same wear and tear as its OEM partner. But used coilovers would be like buying used shocks. Just because it's aftermarket doesn't mean it's immune to rust, deterioration, and it's look at these.
Here's a free tip right here.
Please,
if you buy used coilovers, BC comes to mind, right? I'm sure other companies do this, but I don't know.
Popular.
BC
Very
does
popular.
do this. Buy BCs used and just make sure you can take them apart. It's $400 to get all 4 new shocks and make them brand new. Completely brand new. Completely. So,
know,
yeah, and you can get them custom valve for no extra cost.
I know for a fact Fortune Auto offers that service as well. They're
Then perfect. Do that too.
Closer to Charlottesville. They're good. But
Yep.
yeah, I mean, there's so many things. Even like buying a used welded diff. Don't just change the fluids. Like look in there, make sure the bearings are there, make sure as far as shaft play and stuff like that.
Yeah, and check the welds, make sure there's no cracks in them.
Speaking of welds, maybe that's also why when you're talking about buying some of these cheaper parts, craftsmanship is, there's a reason Josiah's stuff from FDF costs as much as it does, because the R&D is there, the fabrication is there, the meticulousness. Buying
their facility is pretty wild.
Have you been up to his shop in Canada?
Not the new one. I've only seen videos of the new one, but I went to his original shop, and his original shop was even impressive. His original shop was a 2-bay garage that had an office on the side, and it was still impressive.
Yeah. And then now he's cranking out, CNC fabricated laser jet stuff. He's building TLO's
Don't quote me,
car.
but I think he's up to like 20 employees now. I think. So it's
Didn't
like
he
it's
just hire his
amazing.
brother?
Yeah, Joel's on it. You're tall. Joel, you would be up to Joel's nipple.
Yeah, no,
He's the tallest person I've ever met in my life.
I've seen Josiah a couple times. I saw him at PRI at Indy last month, and I think he's 6'6", 6'5". Like he's a large man. He's a large man.
Yeah, he is. And his brother's way taller than him. Way taller.
God, it's like they're breeding Canadian Vikings up there. I don't even know what are they putting in the Canadian water? I swear to God.
Right?
And then words of wisdom. I kind of want to put this in there because you've seen a lot of stuff from the professional side. You've got some friends who are obviously professional drifters in a couple of different circuits and series. What are some words of wisdom that you've been able to pull as far as from what you've experienced, what you've seen? What are some things you want to share with somebody to kind of help keep them humble, keep them motivated, keep them focused on wanting to progress to get to the next level of drifting?
Nothing happens overnight. All those drivers out there, they got 10 years into this, nothing ever happens overnight. The work that everyone has to do behind the scenes can't be shown. You'd be sitting there for years watching all the work that has to go into what you see on the live streams of Formula Drift, Red Bull TV with the Drift Masters, with D1, with FD Japan, with even D1 New Zealand, all of those things. There is just so much behind the scenes. Nothing happens overnight. So anyone getting into this and they can't do it on the first day, I couldn't do it on my first. I couldn't do it for the first 6 months I was driving. Right? It took me probably 6 months of living at a racetrack to link the whole course.
So if we translate that into real people time, it's probably at least 2 to 3 years of consistent driving, and then being able to afford track days to be able to go to drift events. So, yeah. And then that's, we're in 2025 now. That circles back to really how important the sim is. And if you don't have one, I'm sure someone in your friend group probably has one that they'd be more than happy to invite you over and turn some laps on. Or if you don't have a sim and you don't have a car and you just want to go and hang out at drift events, that's probably the fastest way to make friends that's going to scumbag you and push you into getting a sim, a car, or both.
Yeah, it's definitely this. Yeah, motivation is a very similar word to scumbag, but scumbag's more fun.
I said what I said.
Okay, well, what you said was some bull.
I mean, that's just the one thing. A buddy of mine, Danny Dominich, 945 Garage, and every time we'd be talking about stuff, it's the drift scene is what used to be the skate park vibe, and it's a bunch of the homies.
100%.
And if you've never been to a skate park, it's literally however many people just hanging out on their boards or their bikes, talking, BSing, and hey, go try this trick. And it's just everyone's on board to try to make sure you land this trick.
And everyone wants you to do it. Everyone wants you to make it happen. Same thing with drifting. Everyone wants you to progress. Everyone wants you to become better. Like, when I'm in competition, I want my other competitor to do well. Everyone in the Gambler wants their competitor to do well.
Right.
To win on a technicality is not what any drifter wants to do. They
No,
want to
or
just
a
beat you outright.
breakdown. Yeah.
Yeah, no one wants that. No one wants that.
That's got to be the greatest, I would say, dividing factor in our motorsport versus other motorsports in America. It's extremely competitive. I mean, the sunglasses go on race day, and a lot of these guys, NASCAR, NHRA, no holds barred. But drifting, I mean, you've got pro FD drivers that'll run into each other in a final battle, and they'll get out of the car and look at each other and high five and hug each other and make sure they're okay. Like that. That's a level of family that's not shared with any of our motorsports here in America, I think.
Yeah. I think Formula Drift should do that a little bit more, getting out and hugging after every battle. Drift Masters does it, and it is so cool to see. You get out of the car, and then it's visually every driver is, all of them are friends. All of them are friends. In FD, you don't see it as much. Now that Connor is in FD, you see it a little bit more, and James getting out of the car and stuff like that. But I really think that they should do it more. Every time the decision is, there is a decision, the drivers should be able to get out and talk.
Yeah. Or even if it was like just a super, super close, tight battle of just like some hard charging and some door-on-door action and neither of them let up. Like that's how you know you had, like, that's the most amount of fun in drifting. I'm sorry. Like that's what it's fun.
And if a driver is Stonewall looking, he's lying. They're lying. They're stoked underneath that Stonewall. They are stoked. And they're stoked for the other guy, too.
I can think of a couple people that'll do the overheads, especially at New Jersey, because like they really don't have to have like mobile cameras to like try to zoom in. Like it's a drag strip. You can just kind of just from the stands, and they've got their media pods, and you'll see the guys like just sitting there waiting. It's like, I get being in the zone there, bud, but you're excited to be out.
No, we're out for a party, baby. We are out for a party.
Now, one thing I did also want to mention, E-Town offers this for a while now. Pro Bro Down.
Yeah.
Pro
Sickest
Bro Down
event
is
of the year.
probably, yeah, exactly. So can you dive into what Pro Bro Down is and how it came about and that kind of stuff?
So if you're in Formula Drift, you're already in. All you got to do, I think, is just email Club Blue, say, hey, I'm blah, blah, blah. I'm in Pro Spec, I'm in Pro, and I would like to drive Pro Bro Down. I'm pointing at the road course like y'all can see it. And then the craziest part about Pro Bro Down is the bro part. It sells out in seconds. There's only 40 spots available. 40? It's like 20 A group and 20 B group, and that is it. My numbers might be off a little bit, but like, sells out in seconds.
Yeah.
And you can watch some of the best locals just go out and have fun with all the pros. And the pros do. The pros look at the local dudes, they're like, yeah, I'll drive with you, no problem. And they go and they shred.
Well, now, one thing I do want to add, for those of you not familiar with this event, usually this event is the Sunday after the Formula Drift event at New Jersey, correct?
Oh, yeah. Yep, it is.
So you've got 40 locals that are going up against the cars that were just on the podium on Saturday, the day before Saturday night. So they're full on, not their practice cars. They're full on
the pro car.
Yeah. So you know, Adam could be out there in his you know, or E36, and then you got freaking Turk coming up right behind him in that 11 Nissan or Toyota Corolla. And you want to talk about media? You want to talk about media? I think the only other event I think you get the best media at is Hyperfest, but Pro Bro Down is unlike any other event. I mean, you got Winter Jam.
It's really cool.
But so, how did that start? Because I know y'all been doing that for a minute, for at least 10
years now.
Okay, all right.
I think this year might be 10. Last year could have been 10. So they were doing it more. They were doing it for a longer time, but it was a private event just for pros, and then the club was workers, right? And then we were like, why don't we just open it up and bring spectators? And that's how it kind of became a thing. They were like, Club Loose would ask us, hey, can we have fun and do a barbecue the day after? Yeah, sure. Are we invited? Yeah? All right, let's do it. And we turned it into an event.
So I know that obviously FD hasn't been at E-Town, but this was since FD was at Wall then. They would just come down the street and Sunday morning, I guess, or whatever.
35, 40 minutes away.
Okay, yeah. It's
40
not
on a bad day. Yeah.
But now it's even cooler since they're already there. The rigs are already there. The car's already there. Everything's already there. And you just wake up and, I mean, really some of the best media of the year out of that event.
Oh, yeah. Like one of my favorite moments. Well, there's two. Two I'll bring up.
Okay.
One was me running away from Diego Higa in Turk's old pro car. That is one of the coolest laps ever. There's 4 laps. Now there's 4 things. That same day, I got to chase down Tommy Lemaire and
TLO.
One other driver that was in front of him that it's slipping my mind, but it was another pro driver. Might have been Amanda. Actually, might have been Amanda.
Sorensen?
Yeah, it might have been her.
In her Air Force car?
So,
or I know she's,
in the Air Force car.
Yeah.
It was very, very cool. Another thing was Chris chasing down my buddy Roy in a NA M52 E36. That was awesome. And then I'll send you this video so you can insert it.
Uh-huh.
One of my absolute highlights of my entire life was sitting passenger in my dad's car getting chased down by Forsberg when he still had the V.
I remember that video. I've seen that video before. Oh,
yeah.
It sounded so rowdy when you're sitting there and you're going behind him, and you could just hear this car just wanting to eat your dad's car.
Dude, the amount of, like, it's like a perfect amount of, like, camera shake versus, like, just gnarly V8 noises and trying to run away as fast as we can.
Now, so we were both there, so you can correct me on this. Wasn't that the same car that Diego was driving at DK event in September?
So there's 2 of those cars. I don't know which one's what. So Jeff Stonebeck, I don't know if it was built for Jeff Stonebeck or if it was built as a spare car, but Jeff had a car. And then Forsberg had his. And then there was the twins. I don't know which one Diego drove, which one Colton from JDM Supreme has, because it's Colton's car now. Actually, another fun fact, there was supposed to be a third, and that's Alex Jager's car now. It was a rolling shell that was just a rolling shell for years and years and years and years and years. And when Forsberg approached Alex, I believe he bought it. It was at MA or he bought it from Stoneback. I don't know for sure.
It definitely did end up at MA for a couple months because they had to undo some stuff because it had been sitting, updating it to the current.
Well, MA built the car for Alex.
Yeah.
MA did that car up for Alex. But before that, I don't know if it was bought from MA or bought from Jeff, but that was supposed to be another Forsberg racing car. And then it turns out it is anyway.
Yeah, no, but regardless if it's the same car or not, that it's twin, that car, seeing it in person was absolute beast. And Diego is just a frickin' wheelman.
He's so talented.
His skill, I think his first year was not on display. I think it was a lot of nerves and everything. But his second year in FD really proved that gentleman is just...
The other thing is a lot of people don't understand the Brazilian competition, right? The Brazilian comps down there are not anywhere near the same as FD. Their tires are smaller. They don't run 200 tread wear. They're not on our compounds at all. Not at all. Your baddest car out there is like 550 horsepower.
Yeah. Yes.
On a 225 or something like that, a 235, a 245, something really small, and it's a street all season. So that's a huge jump in itself.
Right.
Just the tire, the power, all of that, the car, all of it is so different. And then you're in a grid with the best killers on the planet.
And you didn't really kind of see that when he was on hyperdrive because it was a little bit lower speed. You had a little bit more technical stuff. I mean, even Fielding Shredder wasn't able to pull 100% out of his car. Same with Zhao. I mean, his Mustang was turned down, but that same style of like low speed, high angle, low speed, and almost like ice or rain drifting.
Yeah, and that's what I like about my 235 class and the Gambler, right? Bring the tire down, and the excitement goes up. Just because it's just easier to be close, and it just makes the show better, right?
Is there any major? That's been my biggest curious thing is these guys who build cars that are be able to run both the Unlimited and the 235 class. The level of skill to be able to do that, first of all, is extremely impressive. But do you notice any major modifications they have to make to the car to be able to be a little bit more predictable and accepting of that 235?
Yeah, they do a little bit more with alignment. Instead of finding grip out of the tire, they'll find grip out of the chassis instead.
A lot more toe in and preloading the shocks.
Yeah. Yep.
That makes more sense.
Yep.
So when we're talking about toe in, guys, I know we glazed over that really quick. Toe in is when you take your tires. Usually they're pointed straight. I guess better orientation would be like this. So if your tires are like this in the front or the rear, you can toe in the front or rear of the car. If you toe in, you're pointing them more inwards to the car. So unlike camber, where you take the tops of the tires, and if you have negative camber, you fold it in. Toe in pulls the front of the tires. Now, why would you want to have your tires like this? Chris, can you explain why you'd want to do this?
When your tires are pointing in the direction they're going at each other, it's real slight. You get more drive, right? When you get on the throttle, the car is going to go forward faster. And when they toe out, it's less. It's pretty simple. There is overdoing it, and it's very easy to overdo it. But yeah, that's basically it.
Now, you don't just, obviously you can't just toe in the rear. You can also toe in or toe out the front.
Yeah.
I mean, usually...
Now, they're not drive wheels, so it's very different. Basically, how I explain it is when you have toe out in the front, it's very easy for the car to already be countersteering. When the tires are towed in the front, they have to go all the way 0, and then they can start countersteering, right? So that's how I kind of explain it, and that's my reasoning behind whenever I explain to people why you want toe out in the front.
Interesting. Now, I mean, are some of these fundamentals when you talk about, at East Coast Drift School, are these some of the things that you talk about in classroom, like as far as like breakdown and understanding?
Kind of. It's more like we'll try your car out, and if it feels funky, I'll give some suggestions on how to make it less funky. And most of the time, it's alignment. Most of the time. The other times, it's usually because one coilover is all the way soft, and then on the other side of the car, they're all the way hard. Like, left to right, you kind of want them to be the same front and back. You definitely can make them different. That's fine. But left to right, you pretty much want them the same.
Yeah. No, okay. I'm glad we're able to clear that up, just because, again, if you don't know which way to... And then when you're taking parts on and off a car, you should always align your car, even if it's just toe plates, before an event, because you never know what happens. Even sitting on the trailer, something can settle. But investing in a good set of toe plates is definitely
it's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
And another quick thing, you will always get different readings on an alignment rack, no matter what you do, right? So if you go up on the alignment rack, get an alignment, pull it off, put it back on, those numbers will be different. They will be different. They will. So, yes, those numbers are great, but they're not end-all, be-all, They're not
also,
absolute.
Too, as you learn your car, you can be like, all right, negative 5.5 degrees of camber. Even though it says it's way, way, way off, that's like, looking at the tire, I can see that's good. Especially once you drive it, you learn the feeling. And I mean, this is maybe a little bit more intermediate when you can kind of... doing, but as far as the grassroots stuff, alignment before you go drifting is going to save you a lot of headaches, frustration, anger, and I guess really just not knowing if you're good or not, because the car could be fighting you from day one. So go to alignment.
An alignment from somebody who knows a drift car too, because alignment shops could put everything in the green. Now, for the most part, you do want them in the green, but at the sheet you get at the end.
Yeah.
But a good half of your numbers are gonna be in the red. They're gonna be. And that's kind of just how it's gonna be for a drift car. But a regular Mavis down the road, or a Midas, or whatever, your O'Reilly's, is gonna just go right to green. And sometimes that's not necessarily what you want.
Well, okay, but so this would be particular now. We're talking guys that signed up for East Coast Drift School. Would it be better that their car was in the all green versus them trying to get a drift alignment when they're just starting out? It's tough, I know.
Depends. It depends, right? Now, New Jersey is blessed with so many knowledgeable people. So, like, most of my students are from New Jersey, New York, and Philly, right? And depending on where you live, I can always send you to a shop that I trust that's going to give you a good alignment.
There, okay, that's fair. Especially if you tell them you're
actually, there's a guy here at Raceway right now who works at a shop that I recommend all the time, at least twice a week.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Yep. Jersey Fresh Motorsport in Tinton Falls, New Jersey. I recommend them at least twice a week to get your alignments done there. If you're local, it's just the way. And or if you're in North Jersey, you go to Faction, or you go to Koi Works, or right? They're everywhere. There's knowledgeable people out there. You just got to know the right questions to ask. That's it.
Interesting. Well, I guess when it comes to alignments, if you know a drift shot, get it done right. But if not, just make sure your car is at least proper before trying to hit a drift day.
If it's all on the green, if it's all on the green, it's going to be doable, but then I'll be able to tell you, hey, you should probably try adding this or taking away that, and it'll make it feel a bunch better.
As progression goes, that's fair too. I mean, again, we all got to start somewhere, and at least if it's in the green, you're not like one wheel is like way out, and then everything else is good. And you're like, well, why is it when I go left, it wants to overcook and why do I turn sharper only to the right? Going NASCAR, baby. God. Well, Chris, any last final thoughts on this before we close it out?
I don't know. I feel like I did have something, and then it's gone. ADD just poof.
Gosh. Well, all right. So if I want to follow,
I do remember.
Let's go.
All right. This is the biggest secret in drifting. The biggest secret in drifting.
Do it. I need absolute silence while I fall in the character. I need absolute silence while I fall in the character.
Secret in drifting.
Gearing.
The biggest secret in drifting.
All right, so
your rear diff ratio is the biggest secret in drifting.
Okay, we have a little bit more time to go into this because I want you to kind of break this down a little bit more. When you say rear end diff ratio gearing, can you explain why it's important and how to be able to understand rear end ratio numbers?
Okay, so generally in OEM settings, it's going to be a number that says 3-point blah or 4-point blah, right? Now that is for every one rotation of your tire, how many rotations does your transmission do? Your drive shaft. Your input on the drive shaft, how many does that need to do? So if you have a 4.08, that is the stock ratio in a 4.08 is the stock 241. Okay. So your drive shaft has to turn 4.08 times before your tire does one rotation. Now, it's very, very car and track dependent, and you'll have to ask some of the people who have your car and or drive at your track to tell you what is right. Now, more than likely, your stock diff's going to be just fine. But if you want that extra 5% out of your car, the diff is where you find it. You'll be able to, oh my God, you'll be able to pick up what feels like 50 horsepower by changing your diff. It's wild.
Well, and then not only that, changing which gear you do certain corners in. And then you can be able to increase vehicle speed, and then you increase wheel speed.
Like an example would be my fiance's car, right? It's a stock JZ, maybe makes 175 wheel horsepower, right? But it's got a BMW transmission in it.
ZF?
It's a ZF 5-speed. Yep, it's a ZF 5-speed from like any 328 or 330 from 1996 to 2005.
Very, very, very big range.
Oh, yeah. And I put a 456 in her car. The third gear is 65 miles an hour. Now, it's short for a lot of tracks. Like, if I were to go to Drift Nirvana, it wouldn't work at all because that track's big. But Raceway Park, the road course is pretty small. The stadium is pretty small, and so is the kart track. It's all really small. So third gear works great in her car. And her car feels like it's got 350 horsepower when it's got 175.
No, I have to swear by this because that was actually my biggest modification last year in my G35. Right before the DK event, I went from a welded 3.5 to a welded 408. And
yeah.
Doing third gear was what I would be doing second gear stuff in. And we went to Fuel Fest the weekend after at New Jersey Motorsports Park. And we were doing Thunderhill, and I was banging limiter in fourth around that track. And
now, is your car a DE or is it an HR?
The G35 or the 350Z school car?
No, your G35, the one that I know.
So my G35,
the one that I've seen,
has an LQ base 408 stroker motor. It's a 6.8.
Oh, what am I saying? Of course, I knew that it was a V8. What am I saying?
It's slightly bigger than the NA 3.5 V6.
Yeah, just a tad, but it's still a CD.
E85. So I have the Collins kit on it.
Yeah.
Yep. I like the kit. It works. I don't like having to cut the transmission. That was one of the big things.
The CD in that way is a little funky. It is. Most of the kits you have to cut the bell housing off of for the CDs.
Yeah, I'm doing an LS in my R34 over the winter, and I have another CD for it, and I'm trying to figure out which kit I want to go with because it's like, do I want to cut another one? Because that's the other thing too. Once you cut it, that's it. And
yeah, well, something that's cool is the fish kit. The fish kit gives you a one-piece bell housing.
Yeah. I'm looking into a couple of things. I need to talk to Mike Perez about that. That was one thing. Next time I see him.
I was gonna say that's the fish guy right there.
Mr.
That's
Fish
the
himself.
guy. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Mr. Flagship Fish.
Flag nor fail fish. That's an interview for another day. Well, Chris Napp, you have been an absolute delight. How can we find you? The Raceway, East Coast Drift School. How do we find you on social media?
You can find me at East Coast Drift School on Instagram, Chris_NAPP on Instagram. That's my stuff. We have the E-Town Gambler. It's E-Town_Gambler. E-Town Raceway Park. Any of those things. Raceway Park has a website where you can look at all of our upcoming events. Should be completely full end of February, I'd say. To be confident.
Okay.
To be confident, I'd say end of February we'll have everything out and updated on our website.
Any sponsors or people you want to shout out and thank?
Oh yeah, FDF has been always the biggest help. I know it's not Zeknova, but Volino Tire has always had my back every step of the way. Ian is actually super local to E-Town. He grew up in
Ian.
Allentown, PA,
Ian.
Over the border. Yeah, he is the man. I spent a lot of time with him in Europe last year. It was awesome.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah. And, all the local shops that always have supported Faction, Jersey Fresh Motorsports, Koi Works, Accurate Fab, Action Fab, One Motion Garage, all of those places, they keep the sport alive. All those shops, they just keep it alive. They keep the dream going.
That's fantastic. Well, again, sir, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to be able to make this happen. Conditions aside, I appreciate you making it work in there and all the little hiccups I think we had.
Hey, I'm no longer frozen. It's 36 outside. In here, it is 72, baby. Oh yeah.
A fun, cool New Jersey evening, drones and drifting. You can't ask for much more. Goodness gracious.
Yeah.
All right, well, everybody,
I think
want
that
to
one's
thank you.
button.
Oh, my goodness. I want to thank everybody for tuning in to another episode of the Dirt Drop Podcast. Again, thanks, Chris Napp, for being on. I am Chris DeBoard. You can find me on Instagram at Diva and be able to find us on the Dirt Drop channel on YouTube. Until next time, keep it on the track. Keep it safe, everybody. Bye.